Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 17th regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting. I am going to start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. We can all rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So the first thing that we are going to do is review the agenda, and I will accept a motion for approval.
So moved by Kohler.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second by Rachel.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is a safety moment, so I will pass that over to either Chris or Jerry.
All right. Jerry, do you have a safety moment for us this morning?
School is in session, and I'm sure you guys have noticed the increased traffic in the mornings and the afternoons, lunchtimes. Defensive driving. Be a defensive driver. Keep your head on a swivel. There's a lot of poor drivers out there. There's a lot of young drivers out there, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. So just keep your heads on a swivel, be safe, and good luck with the construction in Pagosa.
Only another year and a half of that, so. Okay, the next item is the board education moment. And Kirsten actually emailed me last night. As most of us know, she's traveling internationally. She's hoping to be able to phone in, but she was dubious of the reliability of where she's going to be at. So she asked me to share the board education moment, which is kind of a play off of what we were doing together at our strategic retreat in the workshop prior to it with the 3-point conversation. So there's 3 points to a conversation using problem, evidence, and solution. First, we need to all understand the problem. Then everyone is there to give data, examples, facts, evidence to support the existence or the importance of the problem. And then finally, we need to get to a solution that actually uses the evidence to address the problem. So one of the key things about this is to remember we need to garner agreement throughout the entire conversation. And this framework we've kind of defined as being particularly useful for navigating difficult discussions. And that will help ensure clarity and focus on resolution and always bringing us back to what is the solution or what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So that was what she asked me to share for the board education moment. And then back to the agenda. So I will then open up for member comments. And if Graham, you want to go ahead and introduce that, please.
Thanks, Nicole. The board encourages comments about the cooperative from its members. The board will take all member comments under consideration, but it will not necessarily provide a response during the member comment period. The board asks that each participant's comments pertain to cooperative business. Those wanting to address the board during the public comment period are granted 5 minutes to address their topics. Lengthy comments to the board should be submitted in writing. Formal complaints must be filed in writing and submitted in compliance with applicable board policy. Comments from the public will be directed to the entire board, not to any individual. No personal attacks shall be allowed. Failure to follow these requirements may cause the public comment period to be terminated. Copies of our cooperative policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the cooperative website.
Thank you, Graham. So let's open up this for public comment. And I guess before we get started on public comment, I do just want to address that I appreciate everyone joining us virtually. We decided to hold this meeting online because earlier this week we spent over 13 hours together in an in-person strategic retreat where we were focused on setting LPEA's direction for the next 5 years. I know some members of the public may be disappointed we're not meeting face-to-face, but this decision does keep our commitment to balance for 2025, where half of our meetings were in person and half were virtual. Since our June meeting, we actually moved from virtual to in person, allowing members to have that additional opportunity to connect directly. Next year, we are committing to 75% of meetings in person, which is 8 out of 12. So I realize this is not everyone's favorite format, but we do appreciate your engagement and participation today as we continue this important work of serving our members and our communities. Okay, so now I'd like to open it up. Do we have any public comment? Let me pull up my participants screen. All right, so I see Ingrid Iverson. You are muted, Ingrid. Okay, go ahead, Ingrid.
All right. Hi, my name is Ingrid Iverson. I've been an LPEA member for more than 30 years. I want to share my story because I know what it's like to live with electromagnetic sensitivity, which is EMS for short. I am disabled, have hearing issues, and I survived a brain tumor that was linked to cellular exposure. These are not small challenges. They shape how I live every day. I don't have the choice to ignore the health effects of digital and smart meters. Because I have solar on my home, LPEA requires me to use smart meters, but that is not the only way. Other electric companies have shown it's possible to use 2 analog meters instead of forcing members like myself to accept meters that worsen our health. For me and for many others, this is not about preference, it's about survival. I hired a building biologist to assess my property for EMFs to help make it safer. I've hardwired my internet and phone, removing all wireless emitters inside my house. But the smart meter creates dirty electricity, which goes through my house, and wireless radiation from which I cannot shield. One of the main things I love to do is garden. It helps my physical and psychological well-being. I need my yard to be safe too. If I can have a disabled accommodation so there is no wireless or dirty electricity from utility meters, it will help keep my EMS from progressing and protect my brain from a tumor recurrence. Both dirty electricity and wireless have been shown to increase the risk of cancer, especially in the brain. Our government's decade-long study by the National Toxicology Program, which ended in 2018, gave, quote, clear evidence, unquote, that 900 megahertz is carcinogenic. If that is a frequency that you are using in the smart meter on my home, I really need to know and have it exchanged soon. Please let me know what frequencies the smart meters use. According to the National Electric Safety Code, LPEA has exclusive control over the data signals, and it's your responsibility to use frequencies that don't cause harm. I want to stand in support of all members who are asking for safer analog meters. This isn't just one person's issue. Many of us are struggling. The pulsed RF radiation from digital and smart meters doesn't only affect those who are medically sensitive, it affects entire households. For people already living with health challenges, the consequences can be devastating. We are members of this co-op. That means our health and our voices should matter. Forcing medically vulnerable members into unsafe situations goes against the very idea of a co-op. Alternatives exist, fair solutions exist. I'm asking LPEA to make those available to anyone who needs them. This is not just for convenience. It's about fairness, disabled rights, and life itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson. And now we will go to Ms. McWilliams.
Thank you very much. This morning, I would like to just comment on a couple of things. At the 2018 strategic planning session, the LPEA board committed to reduce its carbon footprint by 50% from 2018, while keeping the members' cost of electricity lower than 70% of Colorado co-op peers. I'm hoping in this most recent strategic planning session that you had, that 70% is still one of those goals. Members often hear about the progress of reducing our carbon footprint, but we never hear about how LPEA is doing with the goal of keeping the rates lower than that 70%. When I left the board in 2023, LPEA was barely meeting that 70% ratio. According to the most recent 990 report, it looks like salaries increased over $1 million in 2024. And even with the 2 rate increases in 2025, I wonder if LPEA is still meeting that 70% goal. So I would like to request that the board share the most recent key ratio trend analysis, or KRTA. Patrick will know what that is, and hopefully the rest of you board members know as well, with the rest of us members, so that we know that LPEA is also meeting that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McWilliams. Now we will go to Dana Barlow.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I just want to talk to you. Ingrid addressed something that is very important to me, and that's keeping my analog meter. I'm one of the many sensitive people out there who struggle with EMFs, particularly because they've proliferated to a point where it's everywhere you go. And that exposure for those of us who are super sensitive is really difficult. Actually, there are so many people who are sensitive and don't even know it. They don't know why they can't sleep, or why they have chronic headaches or digestive problems or even brain tumors. And they are sensitive to chemical and perfume odors. They have allergies, gluten, milk, lots of things. They don't like loud noises. There's a whole host of characteristics of people who are very sensitive. And, you know, it's something that could be genetic, or it can stem from toxic exposure to lots of things. And also, years ago, I consulted with a practitioner who told me that she had never had a patient who was EMS who also didn't have PTSD. So trauma also is another source of why people are sensitive. And, you know, I just feel like my life is already so regulated to avoid the triggers that will keep me, for me, it's sleep. I would hate to describe how regimented my life is just to keep on some sort of an okay basis. And all the places I don't go because the exposure to Wi-Fi is too much, or there are too many cell phones in that place. Seems like everyone has one of those these days, and that's really toxic for me. If you had a meter and you were exposed to these devices, you would be shocked, honestly, by what they emit all the time. So I'm not going to describe my EMF exposures that tip me into being EMS, but you can imagine that there are lots of places where you can get too much radiation. Let's just say it's difficult, and I don't want anything in my life that makes my life issues more complicated than they are. For my EMS symptoms, my computer is hardwired, my phone is carried in a Faraday bag and used minimally. I'm off my devices by 6 p.m. I wear blue blocker glasses. I have a blue shield device in my purse. I ground myself in the forest every day. I take a lot of supplements that are specifically for that. I had my house analyzed by a building biologist. And then I have that EMF meter, which gives me really good feedback of what's going on around me. And I'm finally starting to get a little bit better with my sleep. And I know that improvement is tenuous, dependent on other exposures to EMS. So I just want to say that I really appreciate not having a smart meter. Those of us who've looked into what they emit realize that a smart meter would just add another problem, and one that we can't self-mitigate. Perhaps there is good shielding technology out there around the corner that would nullify the negative effects. If not, maybe there will be, or quite honestly, there should be. I don't mind reading my meter every month on the 26th. I accept the additional fees for having the analog. Just don't make me put another device in place that could make my EMS worse. I and the rest of us who are sensitive walk a tightrope trying to keep our health on some kind of even keel. We need your support and not the constant threat of losing our analog meters. I honestly believe that the co-op is a compassionate, thinking group of people. And I think there's a way that you can work with those who are sensitive, among us. I'm pretty sure that you all are all aware that EMFs from wireless technologies are harmful
1 minute left.
to the human electrical body, your body as well as mine. And I think a solution that works for me would work for you and others who can't tolerate the increasing levels of exposure. Made it, right?
Yes, you
Yes.
made it.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Ms.
Thank
Barlow.
you.
And now we will move to Mr. Dave Peters.
So thank you, and thank you to the board members and staff for your service to the community. Also, it's encouraging hearing that you're moving to more in-person meetings next year. So during public comment at the last board meeting, a speaker stated that natural gas was depleted in La Plata County. This statement is not true. The Fruitland Formation proven natural gas reserves will provide decades of future natural gas supply. Further gas reserves are substantially increasing due to recent discoveries in the Mancos Shale Formation. 2 Mancos wells now are producing, and just one well is more than enough to supply a 25 megawatt natural gas fired power plant. That new power would go a long way to providing LPEA members with reliable and inexpensive base load that is needed during high demand and weather events. I understand that the Southern Ute tribe is considering natural gas power generation, and LPEA should support their efforts. You can't find a more cost-effective place to use natural gas for electricity than La Plata County. By generating electrical power from natural gas here, you avoid the cost of natural gas transportation, which is over 50% of the cost to the consumer in other parts of the country. The LPEA mission statement includes providing reliable electricity and the lowest reasonable cost. A local natural gas fired power plant fits your mission and should be near the top of your priority list. As we've all seen, US and Colorado electric demand growth has been nearly flat for over a decade, but the last 2 years, the growth has gone way up, largely driven by data centers. Data centers are planning dedicated nuclear and natural gas power plants on or near their sites to power their facilities. You now see some co-ops calling for more baseload power plants. So the point is, it's clear that strategies for electric supply need to change and are changing. And I'm for diverse supply, not just natural gas, but solar. I'm a solar panel owner, but we need to really take a hard look at what's changing in the last couple of years. So all this raises questions on what demand growth LPEA has seen and what are the projections now. When I Google electric consumption history for Colorado co-ops, it states it can't generate the history because LPEA and one other co-op do not report in the same format as the other 20 co-ops. What's the reason you don't report in a standard format that other co-ops use? When I look at the LPEA website, I find very little on historic electric usage and peak demand. Seems the only public information you have is the last year's sales listed on the LPEA fact sheets. I request you add this information to the LPEA website on historic annual electric sales, peak month demand, plus information on peak hourly demand, and if there's been any change since LPEA added a demand charge to bills. LPEA members have real reason to be concerned about future demand growth and how it will affect them going forward. Please put the LPEA data on your website so members can draw their own conclusion and provide constructive ideas for the future. Finally, it's disappointing to see continued internal attacks on LPE board members at the last meeting. It takes a real leader to reduce infighting and align people on common goals. Seems we are lacking LPEA leadership, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peters. Now we will go on to Ms. Kelly Haggerty.
Thank you. If you can hear me. Hi, good everybody. My name is Kelly Haggerty and I live in District 4. I have spoke with you before. And thanks for giving us a chance to speak via Zoom. I actually appreciate Zoom. I appreciate the hybrid concept because I don't break away from my desk to get down there. I'm probably going to echo some of the other comments, but I'm also going to say some of the things that I've talked about with concerns as we're moving away from the reliable, affordable power sources that we may have had before. I want to come at this from a different angle. And we know federal subsidies are being reduced or going away. So renewable is going to be more expensive. We do have rise in AI demand and other technology, as I think the other speaker was mentioning. Certainly that type of energy demand is only going up. And I really think in the conversation we have to, as again, the other speaker was suggesting, our local San Juan Basin natural gas providers are more than competent to provide, and within state, federal, tribal, environmental guidelines, they're already operating. Right now, and this isn't you, but let me digress. The county's looking for a sales tax increase because of decline in natural gas. Part of that's market prices, but part of that, and a bigger part, is county level restrictions that have held the industry back. So it's not that these can't produce, it's just they're being restricted on their production. And again, I know you're not responsible for that, but it does affect our community. So here's my different angle or my different ask is if LPEA were to genuinely consider, and it's hard for us to come in and talk to you guys on a regular basis. You realize we're genuinely trying to create dialogue with us, if you will, membership and board. So please consider this. If we were to partner with local natural gas producers, it would give us two big wins. First, we'd have stable, local, and affordable power for members. You can't deny local is more environmentally friendly than anything. And then second, a boost to production would generate the kind of tax revenue that right now La Plata County is scrambling to replace. So it's like a win-win. Ratepayers, co-op, the community, and just think about that's truly you as LPEA directors working within our county with our area to actually create a solution. So that's like a win-win. That would be so well received by membership. It would bring tax dollars back into La Plata County and provide us with good local jobs, support, power, etc. But thank you. Please consider those comments. I know you talk offline in executive session, and please consider our local natural gas production. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haggerty. Now, Mr. John Purser.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on here this morning. I find it really difficult to address this board. I find this board to lack integrity, to lack honesty, to lack basic, well, we'll leave it at that. The most blatant example is the failure of having a member vote to exit tri-state. This is contrary to bylaws. It's contrary to your IRS Form 990 filing, which explicitly states that members will vote on major decisions. And I don't see how this board can argue that exiting tri-state is not a major decision. So the other blatant example, I mean, there are so many examples of this board's failure to abide by their own policies, to abide by their own bylaws, to abide by state law. The most blatant example was the election 2 years ago. You have a policy that clearly states on how notification should be done to members. You ignored that. After 80 plus years of doing elections, suddenly you don't notify members of how to become candidates. And you come up with some ambiguity in the same bylaws we've been using for years. When you had a policy that clearly spelled out how to do an election notification. That's the most recent, but there are so many failures of respecting your members by abiding by those things. Another recent example, this isn't a bylaw, but it's lack of respect for membership. The survey you've just sent out. On your website, it says it's random, and right below that allows for an opt-in to the survey. That makes it statistically invalid, and it's no longer a random survey. And in terms of setting direction and seeing what the membership thinks, you've thrown it out. Anybody would know that a survey that allows opt-in is not statistically significant. Bullying and intimidation has come up. And I know I've run for the board on several occasions. This comment period does not allow for personal attacks, yet board members speaking as board members in social media and in public forums are clearly allowed to do that. And it's totally inappropriate. When I ran for the board 3 years ago, I was attacked by a board member in the local media as a liar and hysterical liar when I brought up legitimate issues of governance. And so you claim to want a dialogue. That's not what I've seen. The other thing I see, board members, our new president, in her first statement as president, reiterated the one voice policy. I've been told by a board member that that policy was used to threaten and intimidate him with removal from the board for speaking out on issues that the board has decided. Clearly, we elect board members to represent the members, not the board majority. And we pay and expect the board members to put in service every week on our behalf. Board members who are in the minority view should not be suppressed from expressing their educated viewpoint on our issues. That's what we pay them for. Last, talking about intimidation of candidates, I have filed election complaints against 2 incumbents for blatantly violating policy. If you go if you go to your website and you search on Bill Waters, who is a very nice gentleman who ran for the board with best intention. If you search his name on the LPEA website, you'll come up with his violation from almost 5 years ago now.
Okay, time's up, Mr. Purser.
Incumbents.
Did you hear that? That your time's up?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Miss Emily Frogen.
Hi, my name is Emily Frogen and I live in District 3. I first want to thank you all for the work you've been doing. I am especially looking forward to all of the community events that are upcoming for the co-op month in October. I think that those are a really great way to have meetings kind of outside of business hours in the morning and at other places around the community. So I think that that's a great idea, and I'm really excited to attend those and see how those progress. My second comment or question more is wondering if there could be a community update on the RFP process. I know that there are limits on what could be said at this stage, but I do think that some form of informative update would be helpful for members since our exit date is coming up. And I know I and other co-op members are really interested in the sources of power that LPA is considering, and also maybe an update on the timeline. So I think that would be, I know you all have announced that you got, I think, like 77 proposals, but it'd be good to just know what you're considering in that, or how much you could say on that would be helpful. And then along that RFP process, I'd love to know how much of the member focus group you all did in last fall and into this winter is being considered. The member focus group was on power supply and was helped or was kind of phrased to use informing your decisions. And in that focus group, the membership ranked environmentally friendly as the top issue. It was followed by affordability, reliability, and then last, locally generated. And those are all really important priorities. But I just want to know how LPEA, or if they're taking in that account from the membership's focus group and how that's factoring into those decisions. And in that study, members cite climate change as the top concern when they prioritized environmentally friendly power supply as the #1 thing that the board should focus on. So I just urge you all to keep that front of mind, and I really look forward to hearing more about the future of our power supply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frogen. I was taking some notes on some of the things I'd like to quickly comment to. I heard a couple people acknowledging the concern from our last meeting and the misconduct there. And I want to assure everyone the full board came together. We reached an agreement on what conduct is appropriate in our meetings, and we're committed to holding ourselves to that standard going forward. As the board president, I've also committed to being a more assertive chair and making sure that their meetings operate at the highest level of professionalism, respect, and productivity. I am grateful to my fellow directors and the public as I find my voice in this new role, and I appreciate your patience and your continued engagement. I do want to say that I felt there was a pretty strong public attack or personal attack from the public, and I would not permit that among the fellow board members. And then I'd also like to comment on, so we did have an email from Miss Deborah Schisler, which I see she's on today. It was about some of the things that the analog metering issue that multiple members brought up. So I'm going to pass that over to Graham here shortly. I do want to assure both members who asked about future power supplies to let them know that local natural gas is being considered among lots of different resources. And if appropriate, Chris, if you could give an update on where that process, the RFP process is, that'd be great. If we need to, if you're not prepared for that, just let the members know and let's make sure we get back to them. So the first thing I'd like to ask is Mr. Graham Smith, if you could go ahead and address some of the analog digital metering concerns.
Thank you, Nicole. So I appreciate the diligence and research that Ms. Schisler put into her email. Appreciate her citation of House Bill 25-1175. That does not apply to anybody other than investor-owned utilities with more than 500,000 meters. But nevertheless, it is good information to have on hand, and we are aware of it and familiar with it. We'll say that as far as Ms. Schisler or the earlier member, I believe it was Ms. Iverson or any other member that feels that they would like to engage with La Plata Electric on reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. We are here to engage with you, and you can reach out to the cooperative, and we will work to find a reasonable accommodation that's not unduly burdensome to the remaining membership. But we are here to engage in those discussions. I believe we have a member on here that we are currently engaging in those discussions with, and I think that those discussions have been productive and that we've been able to make some progress on. Would also like to note that, yeah, under policy 215, we have, I would, I'm trying to think of what else I have to sort of address in this, Nicole, that you would like me to touch on.
I think probably what accommodations we are making.
Yes, so under HB 25-1175, the state opt-out is a non-communicating meter that is a digital meter, not an analog meter, and we're able to work with members on trying to find accommodations like that. We also have remote siting of meters. You might have noticed that we have meters on pedestals that are located further away from people's houses. And I might call on Dan Harms here for a second as the engineer who knows maybe some more of what our accommodations in the field are, but we try to come up with individualized accommodations to meet individuals' particular disabilities. There isn't sort of a one-size-fits-all solution to this EMS accommodation that we found, and we try and work through each of these cases individually. Dan?
Graham, the only thing I would add to that is that we certainly will take the digital meters that have no smart meter component to it whatsoever, and it cannot function as a smart meter. It is a digital meter, but for those cases, and you know, that have now been tested, and we can place those out in the field that do not transmit radio frequencies.
Okay, thank you both, Graham and Dan, and I hope that addressed Ms. Schisler's emailed comments. Now, Chris, do you want to just comment real quickly about the RFP process? So
yeah.
Questions.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Nicole, and chance to add just a little bit more information for our members who are participating this morning. The RFP update, really just want to make sure folks understand how we're evaluating the proposals that we received. We have developed several different scenarios to evaluate based on total cost and price stability of the projects, the local or regional nature of those projects, and the flexibility that they provide. Of course, we need to meet our obligations under state law to reduce carbon emissions by 80% by 2030, and carefully looking at reliability and resource adequacy in each of the portfolios that we're evaluating. So that's the process that we're in right now. Of course, we've established our power supply up until January of 2028, and now starting to look at our options for those out years toward the end of the decade. So that's where we are in the process. We're going to be bringing proposals back to the board over the next several months to start to firm up that supply in the out years. But hopefully that gives you a little bit more information of how we're looking at it. And as Nicole mentioned, natural gas generation is one of the many options that we're looking at within those different portfolios.
Thank you, Chris. And I just want to correct something, a mathematical error. I said we're doing 8 out of 12 meetings in person, and that's actually 2/3%. So thank you to the director who is trying to help me look as good as possible on this in this meeting. But yeah, all right, we are done now with public comment. And now I would like to move on to the division dashboard. And Chris, I think, you know, the only feedback I got was positive. from the directors who did respond about the idea of just waiting till the end of the dashboard for questions. So I'd like to continue with that format.
I think we also have the consent agenda.
Oh, well, let's get that done. Excuse me. I would like to accept a motion for the consent board items.
So moved by Kohler.
Okay, we got Kohler moved the motion. Can I get a second?
Ted, second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oh,
Aye.
looks like there's some further discussion.
Maybe discussion.
Okay, let's go ahead and Tim, go ahead.
I just want to note that I did make some suggestions for some edits of the minutes of the last month's board meeting. And so if anyone wants to review those, we could pull that off and maybe somebody could, Janelle or somebody could bring them up.
The minutes that are in the board packet, Tim included that, and I also emailed the full board with your edits.
Okay, all right, thanks, Janelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, go ahead, Kohler.
Yeah, I got a question because I'm interested in the energy innovations, which is November the 3rd. So I have in my notes that we might possibly have a committee of the whole. Could somebody tell me if that is going forward or not? And if that's the true date for it? It's a little off subject, but I couldn't really put in a request without knowing if I could go or not. So,
Right. Chris, do you know that offhand?
Yeah, so Kohler, I believe you're referring to the CREA meeting in Denver. Is that the one you're thinking about?
Yeah.
That meeting is going forward. That invitation should have gone out to all of the board members. I'm planning to attend on that Monday as well, and happy to follow up with board members that are interested.
Well, the question I had is I had my notes that we were looking at having a committee of the whole here on that same date. And I don't know if my notes are whacked out or if that's a consideration.
All right.
I have the cow for October 13th. Oh wait, I'm sorry, you're talking about November, yeah. Pulling up my calendar right now.
Yeah, I had that one down as well, Nicole. And then if we were to have a cow in November, it wouldn't be the 3rd.
Okay, so I was hoping that would not be the case. So
yeah,
thank you. Sorry to take up the time.
No, it's all right.
It's good. We have a lot of meetings going around right now, so thank you for that clarification. I know there were some like holds being sent too, so we'll make sure we firm those up as soon as possible so people can plan accordingly. Okay, so I see the consent board. Okay, so we've got a motion, a second. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And now we're going to move on to the dashboard.
Terrific. All right. Well, great to be with everyone this morning. Wanted to provide a few highlights from our monthly dashboard and then look forward to any questions or comments as we wrap that up. To start with our first slide, which is the key performance indicators, very similar to what you saw last month. We're in good shape on most of the indicators. Of course, the cash reserves by design are lower than our target as we prepare for our exit payments. So that was a strategic decision that we made many months ago, and so that reflects that decision. On the equity, you can see we're off by 1%. Again, that is reflective of us preparing for our CTP financing. So that remains in line with our plan for that financing structure. And then the last one I wanted to mention here that is below our initial target is our beneficial electrification sales. We are seeing some slowdown in that area. We have had a recent meeting to look at the structure of our rebate programs and incentive programs for our members on this front. And I think we're going to see, a better efficiency in that area. But the other comment that I'm aware of is that our target was pretty assertive. We set ourselves a big target, and good to shoot for the stars, and sometimes you end up on the moon. And I think that's our situation right now. Still good performance, but a little bit under our initial target. We'll continue to work hard to support our members with beneficial electrification. But that gives you a little bit of background on what's happening in that category. All right, moving on to the next slide. Really wanted to highlight the last item on the page here. This is a project which we've been working hard with our mapping and staking folks, making sure that we've got the better software in place. We've really streamlined that process. Great work to Drew and his team on getting that ready. So this has been a month of testing. We'll have a full go live at the end of October, and really seeing this as a big efficiency gain for our teams. We're almost paperless now in our staking processes and able to move that all onto a single device. So a lot easier for the team to handle that. So that's been a great step forward as far as efficiency and using new IT tools to streamline our staking processes. If we go to the next slide, I think the best thing to highlight here is continue to exceed on SAIDI and SAIFI goals for August. There are always, a few incidents. We've got squirrels and raccoons, and sometimes cars hit poles, sometimes trees knock down lines. But the good news is we continue to beat and I should say exceed our goals for duration of outages and number of outages. So it's really great work by our line teams and dispatch to quickly respond to any issues that do come up because of a storm or other issues. With that in mind, let's go to the next slide. Wanted to especially highlight the item at the top of the second column. We received approval for the contract termination payment financing from the CFC, the Finance Cooperative Finance Corporation, as it's known, the CFC. That was a great step forward. That involved a massive amount of work especially from Patrick and his team to prepare the financial models so that the CFC team could review those. And we've received approval now for our financing mechanism to handle that transaction. We'll of course be bringing the final loan documents back to the board for consideration next month. But step one was to get approval. Sort of think of it as pre-approval on a mortgage loan, kind of a similar thing for us. So we now have that step taken care of. So a big thank you to Patrick and his team for their hard work on that important step. As we go to the next slide, this is just a reminder of kind of where we are in our transition period. As I mentioned during the member comments, full supply locked in until the end of 2027, and have about half of our supply locked in through 2033, and now working on locking up and confirming our supply options for 28, 29, and 2030. And the board will be seeing more on that front as we firm up those PPA options that we want to bring forward to the board. But just want to assure everybody we're in good shape here in the next couple of years, and now working ahead, getting our homework done ahead of time for 28 and 29. As we look to the next slide, a couple of things I wanted to highlight here. Toward the bottom of the first column, we've been very engaged with La Plata County on giving them information and feedback on safety questions around battery energy storage systems, sometimes referred to as BESS. The county staff has worked really closely along with the fire chief in Durango to have that conversation with our wonderful engineering staff. A big thank you to Dan Harms and his team for their work on that. And so really we're looking to support the county government as they firm up any regulations or safety regulations in that area around battery systems as we consider those as potential parts of our future energy portfolio. The other thing I wanted to mention on this particular slide is that the surveys that we're partnering with NRECA, this is the 10th year of that survey process. So we have some great time series data and longitudinal data from those surveys. And those have gone out and seeing a good initial uptake there, and looking forward to seeing the results from that survey. And of course, we'll bring that back to the board as we analyze all of those responses. If we go on to the next slide, some great pictures from the fair. We had our booth in a slightly different place this year, but strong presence of LPEA at La Plata County Fair and the Archuleta County Fair. Of course, heavily engaged in livestock auction as well. Thank you to Directors Blake and Mars for spearheading that effort on behalf of LPEA. But you can also see some of our engagement with the kids in particular, doing different educational projects during the fair, and lots of great pictures from those interactions. If we go to the next slide, this is really focused on some of our key indicators on the finance side. As was mentioned, our cash reserves are below our overall target. A big part of that, of course, is our preparation for the CTP transaction. But also, we did have a real estate transaction that we executed during the month of August that the board approved to have some land north of Durango, kind of in the Trimble area, to be ready for future service expansion in that part of our service territory. So that also had an impact on cash reserves with that transaction. So there's a couple things to mention there, but let me turn it over to Patrick and see if there's any other detail he'd like to add.
Thanks, Chris. For the month of August, I would highlight that our margins were worse than budget, and they were off by 10% as far as operating margins are concerned. That was driven primarily by delta and gross margins. We had in our large industrial segment, one of our customers took down a compressor that was approximately 5 megawatts, if I'm remembering correctly. That impacted total sales for commercial industrial. They were down by 14%, which resulted in revenue being off by 12% in that category. Conversely, residential sales were up 3% with revenue up 5%, and small commercial sales were up 2% with revenue up by 4%. We have better than budgeted performance on the controllable expense side of the equation, which was an aggregate of inputs to result in that delta on that. Generally, we had some payroll improvement, and there's some timing variance on fire mitigation that's been talked about before. Los Ranchitos project, there was some budget variance, and the transmission side of the equation, in which there was a large activity on that transmission segment. And as Chris mentioned, on the cash side of the equation, we had a large real estate transaction that impacted cash. So that drove primary delta on the drop of that KPI. And I'll open for questions.
Yeah, and just quickly to mention on the compressor load, the large industrial that was mentioned, our understanding from that customer is that those compressors are being repaired and are likely to be back online later in the coming months as those repairs come in. So just to give a little bit more detail on, we're expecting that piece of our industrial load to be back online as those repairs are completed. Nicole, if it's all right, I'll just finish the last slide, and then we'll be able to start with any questions or comments. If we look at the last slide, the thing I really wanted to highlight here is some great work that Dan Harms and his team have been doing with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. We got our initial results back from the Lodge study, least cost optimal distribution grid expansion. Love all the acronyms in this business, but really great chance to do a deep dive on upgrading distribution systems, how we can support additional distributed solar in different parts of our service territory where we have some constraints. And this study is really helping us understand the different impacts and the different flexibility that we have with and without different types of system upgrades. So really helpful for us as we continue to support our members in more distributed energy resources. But let me turn to Dan to see if he wants to add some detail.
Thank you, Chris. I think you hit it pretty well. The Lodge results was a fabulous study that was done. They take into our cost to upgrade wires, to add regulators, to add batteries, to add solar, and all these things that can come together to find the most optimal way to run our grid. And it showed some good things, all down to the feeder level, and some action items for us to take that we can incorporate into our capital project plan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. With that, Madam President, yeah, I'd love to take any questions from the board.
Okay, great. I see Joe's hand is up.
Excuse me. Yeah, Chris, regarding the discussions with the county on the batteries, when safety, when we had the meeting with, I believe it was the Energy Authority folks, they were explaining that some of the a fire that took place, I don't know, a year or two ago, was built, that the battery was built with some old, well, it wasn't very well built. And that now there are standards in the industry to build those containers that house the batteries in a much safer way, and that the fires are really not much of an issue anymore. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's a good summation, Joe. I mean, there were some early battery designs. The one that's often cited is Moss Landing in California, where they were stacking the batteries and didn't have proper temperature control integrated into the design. There were kind of two mistakes that compounded each other that did lead to a pretty serious fire. Those are now 15-year-old designs. What we are evaluating are very, much more modern, lots of additional safety systems and temperature control systems. And of course, you'd never stack them in a vertical way. They would, so that you'd reduce that problem as well. So we've carefully communicated that and those upgrades, those new designs to the county. I've had a great back and forth with county staff and with the fire chief to make sure they understand how that technology has changed and is much safer now. So that's been a big part of our communication, and we feel like there's millions of operational hours now across the globe with the more modern designs, where there's been almost no issues with those types of designs. So yeah, we feel confident we can operate them safely, and we've got some great partners that we're talking with that have demonstrated that safety over many years. And really just making sure that the county staff and the fire department are comfortable with that, with all that data. And that's what Dan and his team have been supporting.
Okay, great. And one other question, it was brought up during public comment about the NRECA survey possibly not being statistically valid. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'll see if Amanda wants to chime in on that.
I'd be happy to. Good question, Joe. So two things are happening here. As Chris mentioned, this survey that we just kicked off on Monday is going to be the last survey in a series of 10 years. And so as NRECA works to compare data over that time period, they will be looking at a sample of data that is representative of our whole membership. So they will take a look at the data that they can compare to the prior 10 years in that competitive set. And they will also provide us with the separate series of data that includes all survey responses for the board to take a look at. So there's a comparability standpoint to make sure that the board is reviewing, accurate comparative data during that decade of survey or that survey time period. And then we also know, and I do believe a member was asking about what the members are rating as most level of importance as we look at power supply decisions. So you all will be able to look at a comparative set of data that completes that 10-year time period. And then also you'll be able to slice and look at all data received from all survey respondents.
So locally and nationally, is that what you mean?
Yes, so NRECA will compare our members' responses to a national set. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, just real quick before I go to Rachel, I have received a message from staff that we had an additional public comment that I'm sorry that I didn't see that. So just let that member, whoever you are, because I don't see a hand raised anymore, but after the dashboard, we would be happy to take your comment, and my apologies that you were missed.
So,
okay,
Mr. Ruggles, that was your hand, so you're still on. If you'd still like to make your comment, we'll have the opportunity for that after the dashboard.
Okay, That sounds good. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was just curious what out of the couple of studies with NREL and Lawrence Labs, what if any big takeaways did we glean that might help give us direction?
Yeah, pass that to Dan. Dan?
Sorry, Rachel, the takeaways on which part?
There was the NREL and the Lawrence Labs studies that they completed.
Yeah, so there's our biggest takeaway is it's a very complex system to analyze. And, you know, our key goal was, you know, the scanning and the items that we look at to evaluate whether a new system can come on had some limits to it. And, you know, we're trying to evaluate, you know, are these screening processes, why are those out there? Are they applicable to inverter systems? Or are they just for spinning motors? And what is it that pertains to us and what is it that doesn't? And so we found some areas where it's like, oh, that was only applicable to more of a spinning generation set. So maybe that's something that we don't have to look at quite so hard unless it's obviously a spinning generator. And so I think we've gained some flexibility in areas, and we now know what relays and settings that we need to use at different substations. So there's some upgrades that can be made that we're looking at incorporating into our capital project plan for next year as well.
And it just underscores how much this is a system in transition entirely, right? Reformation. Cool. Chris, were you gonna add on? Sorry.
No, I mean, I think your last point is a great one. You know, historically, the system has been designed from, you know, if you think back in the you know 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was big central plants, and then you distributed it out to the edges of the grid. And now with distributed energy resources like rooftop solar and others, you know, it definitely changes how we operate the grid and design the grid. And I'm just so glad, you know, that Dan and his team are interacting with the world experts on this. You know, Lawrence Berkeley and NREL have, you know, the top scientists in the world on grid control and design. And it's great that we can take advantage of those resources.
Thank you. And then I just had one other question slightly related to a changing system. And looking at our rebate models under beneficial electrification, and I know that's just one way we're tracking that. But just thinking of the reality of kind of the IRA's impacts at the household level, or the cancellation of the IRA. Maybe I'm getting the terms wrong, but basically the end of tax credits and things. And I'm curious what sort of information, if any, is coming out about projections of slowed uptake in that sort of realm as some of these incentives go away. I'm not sure if the market got there as intended before these got pulled out, and how that might change or how we're thinking differently about our beneficial electrification strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the federal policy changes will have an impact across this category. As you correctly mentioned, there are several areas where there were federal support mechanisms that are going to be expiring. And we think that will slow adoption in some areas. I think what we're trying to evaluate right now is how can we as LPEA best support our members and sort of get the most bang for the buck. We've got a limited amount of resource that we can use for support mechanisms, and where are we seeing the highest return for our members and for the overall system that benefits all the members, and really just focusing in our resources to those areas. We believe that heat pump programs continue to show great results, you know, among the various options that we have. And so, you know, we're redesigning that for 2026, and you'll see that reflected in our budget proposal we'll bring to the board next month.
Thank you, Chris. And Rachel, for your questions. Let's move to Tim.
Thank you. Just going back to the load study, I would request that at some point we get a presentation to kind of summarize that and inform us a little bit more about those results. I appreciate Dan's explanation here, but it raises questions as well as answers a few. And so I think it'd be great if we could get at some point, an opportunity to look at and ask more questions about that result.
Yeah, no problem, Tim. We can make sure the board gets more detail on the lodge study.
Thank you much.
Do we have any more questions from board members? Okay, well, and now we will pivot back to public comment. Mr. Ruggles, I appreciate everyone's grace as we kind of hopscotch around this morning. And like I said, I apologize for missing your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you for making this exception or this whatever for allowing me to speak. I have several different issues. Some of them are on topics you've been discussing. But first and foremost, I'd like to know who we could speak to. There's an issue with my parents. I take care of my mother, and their power bill is going up and up and up. And the house is vacant, and they have no refrigerator on, no freezer on, but somehow at 9 p.m. they have a peak load of 3.5 megawatts. That's total BS. They have electric heat. They have no automatic anything coming on. There's a few lights in the house on all the time, 24/7. And there's something wrong there, and what the process is to get that corrected, because you guys normally think that your stuff is always right. So that or maybe some kind of a check meter or something that we could put on there, see if the meter's bad, or if maybe there's a wiring short going on that could cause this load. And if we catch it before we burn down the house, would be nice. Another thing I wanted to bring up, when you guys were talking about fires and the batteries and how you're working with the county, I was involved with Matt and stuff to actually get some of that started. One of the questions that I don't think you guys are addressing, nor some of these other solar companies are addressing, is the actual consequences of failure. I mean, your incident rate might be low and it might be going down, but your consequences of failure on some of the places you're putting these batteries is extremely high. And there, you have battery fire, so there is previous incidents. And then you have consequences of failure. That has to be addressed for a proper process hazard analysis. If it's not, you guys are leaving yourself wide open for major lawsuits when you burn down people's houses and kill people because you didn't adequately do a process hazard analysis and take into consideration the consequences of failure. So I would really hope you guys do that when you're doing your facility siting for these units, to make sure that you consider the consequences of failure and cite these things where you can control it. Then the other thing, Dan knows a little bit about this. He used to be the operations supervisor at the old Williams, now Harvest plant. And you guys were talking about some natural gas power. They may be running it differently than we used to. We used to run it, their big generator, the most efficient way. But why not go to them and offer to pay for the natural gas fuel and max that generator out 24/7? You have no capital costs and you're just paying for fuel. They have the capability to do it, but it's not cost effective for them to do it. So, or it wasn't, the price of things change, and I've been out of it for quite some time. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was, you mentioned the load study that you did. There's some lab, I think Dan mentioned it. What would it take to get a copy of that study? And when will you guys put pen to paper and tell us what the future capital cost is going to be and the effects on our power bill to upgrade our system to that? thank you for your time and thanks for this opportunity.
And Dale, one point of clarification on the billing side of the account. You said 3 megawatts. Did you mean 3 kilowatts?
Yes, it's 3.569 kilowatt hours. And it's a huge amount for a vacant house without any electric heat or real electric consumption other than a few light bulbs.
Got it.
Especially at 9 o'clock at night.
Which I think we can address the process part of your question in that. And who should Mr. Ruggles contact about his concerns about incorrect metering?
Yeah,
What's the
reaches out to our customer call center. They'll direct them likely to we have a specialist that handles exactly those types of calls. So we can she'd be glad to help. And I'll give her a heads up.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Ruggles. Glad we got your comment in. And now we're going to jump back forward. We completed the dashboard, and I did have a break scheduled in there, but I'd like to go ahead and see if we can accomplish a few of our board action agenda items and kind of keep that break a little closer to 10:45. So let's start with the Committee on Policies update. Go ahead, John. John Witchell.
Yeah, sorry, I was struggling for my thing. Yeah, we are still essentially in process with a number of conversations that we've been having. We are looking primarily, as I said, we closed out a bunch of open issues, sort of doing some lightweight red line, and then sort of began a conversation about perhaps revisiting the some of the rules around conflict of interest, but did not make really any notable progress on that. So I think we're going to do a couple more meetings before we would have anything substantive to report to the board. So not much else after that.
Do we have any questions from the board about John's report? Seeing none, I'd like to ask just a question. I know when I was the secretary of the COP, we had committed to reviewing the line extension policy or having legal review it every September. Graham, I don't know if that's something that you guys have discussed or if that's, and we also talked about having, kind of coming back at the end of the year with any new changes in state laws that might affect, any of our founding documents. Is that something that's being looked at?
Yes, and I'll be able to have to get that started. I don't have specific changes to the line extension policy in mind at this point. Brief summary, there aren't meaningful cooperative governance laws that were passed this year, but that said, as the board recalls from the report from the election supervisory committee, they had some potential bylaw suggestions that we think will work to kind of promulgate and make sure they're reviewed by the board for possible inclusion on the ballot at next year's election.
Great. And then just a reminder on the timeline of that. So in order to get on the ballot, we kind of wanted that to be before the COP by when?
So in order to be on the ballot, I'm going to sort of call on Amanda when the ballot timing and finalization is. I believe that's typically close to 60 days before the election.
The deadline is 2 days after the candidate qualification.
Which one is that, Amanda?
Please hold. It will be on March 25th of 26.
Okay, so we have some time. Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, John, if you could just kind of keep that on your radar for the beginning of first quarter of next year.
Yep, will do.
Okay, anything else for John? Okay, well, thank you, John, and to our COP members, our committee members. Now I will move it over to the Finance and Audit Committee update. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Nicole. So yeah, the report is in the packet, and hopefully everybody got a chance to read it. I'm happy to take questions, but we did have one recommendation coming out of the executive session, which is that the FAC recommends that the board approve the CFC loan agreement documents, which will be reviewed later in this board meeting, and the resolution, which identifies the CEO as the executor of the agreements. So I just want to make sure to highlight that recommendation. We spent a lot of time as a Finance and Audit Committee in that meeting to look at these and come up with that. It's kind of also important to note that most of those agreements are pretty much unchanged, almost entirely unchanged from what we operate under at the moment. So there's not a lot of big changes within the context of what would be recommended as being signed. And I know there's a presentation later here. So I just wanted to note that for the fact. So if there are any questions from any members, I'll be happy to try and answer them at this point. Or directors, I should say. Always thinking about members. Nicole?
I appreciated that we were able to review these, our withdrawal agreements and the loan agreements kind of in tandem. I think this has been addressed, but my concern was, if we have any kind of mismatch between loan terms and potential FERC outcomes. But it seems like there's plenty of space in what the kind of the loan terms that are being offered for us for CFC in case anything comes back from FERC that would make us need to adjust our borrowing amounts.
Two things. One, we did not discuss withdrawal agreement in the FAC at all. So I'm not sure, at least in the context of what you said, I heard withdrawal agreement. We did not discuss that. And in terms of these agreements, we're authorizing the question, and the recommendation that we provided to that question was really around, are these sufficient enough to give that authority in a resolution to the CEO to execute? And in that execution, there will be finalization as we approach the CTP deadline for final negotiation of terms like interest rate and so forth. The length of the loan is set in these, or the two different loans. There are three different loan facilities. Our recommendation applied to just two, the CTP and the Power Vision, which is a long-term loan that would allow for capital improvements, capital projects. And so we did not and do not anticipate knowing final terms on these at this time, because we are looking to optimize those as we go along, and that timing has an effect on that. So and then there was one other thing that you said, question right at the end, that I'm trying to recall.
Well, I think it was a good reminder. We're not this is not terms, this is authority. That's all we're doing right now.
It's authority to execute the agreements that we saw, and some of that execution will occur at a later date. So we're authorizing the CEO to do that. As Graham reminded us, these are almost identical to the terms, the long-term lines of or long-term loans that we currently have in place, and And there's just a couple of things that are different. It's the waiving of an administrative fee for prepayment and a board recommended, well, no, there was one other thing, and maybe Graham or Patrick can point that out.
Just the term of the loans.
Term, that's right.
And when I say term, I mean the length, right? How many years you could potentially run up to amortize the debt.
That's right. Thank you. Did that answer your questions, Nicole?
Yeah, and just so I understand, you guys, we didn't look through the withdrawal in fact. I meant in preparation for this meeting, being able to see, the withdrawal agreement and how we're going to pay for it at the same time is what I was referring to.
That reminds me, you asked something about is this sufficient to cover any changes?
Mhm.
And in last month's board meeting, we approved the loan facility limits that CFC had offered us. Those limits are anticipated to be well above what we actually plan to utilize. Sort of like, and I think Chris has said this before, sort of like a credit card loan, capacity that you don't intend to actually use, but if you need it, it's there. So I believe that has been considered, and even though these numbers look large, they're larger than we anticipate needing as sort of a safety factor. Is that fair, Chris and Patrick?
Yep. I think that's a good way to say it. Yeah, our kind of our credit limit has been established. We are going to need, less than that, but we do have some space. Our credit limit is well above what we're going to actually need to borrow.
Any other questions for the Finance and Audit Committee on the report? All right, Nicole, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I would like to try to get through the next board action agenda item, Director Outreach Program Presentation, and then we can plan on taking perhaps our break, depending on how this goes. And so I will pass the gavel over to Rachel. She has taken this charge on, and I'm excited to see what they came up with.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amanda, and thanks to everyone for your work on this to date. So on Monday, we got to see kind of the big member engagement package that the staff is proposing, of which we've got some roles. So our town hall meetings and things coming up, as well as, and what we discussed at our last month's meeting, these member or co-op 101 presentations. And so in response to some of the questions you all had, great questions you had last month, we huddled back together, and just to confirm, when we give these little 20-minute overviews of the co-op, the thought here is we are really the ambassadors of the cooperative. And so we're going in there with the kind of speak with one voice mindset. This is just factual presentation and updates of what's been going on with the cooperative. And so it's not the bully pulpit or a chance to kind of opine, if you will, in that regard. If you get questions at the end about what do you member think about X, Y, and Z, the guidance there is just referencing policy 122 and our duty to loyalty in how you answer. Use your best judgment, and if you're answering as yourself, just make sure that you state you are answering as yourself. In this instance, you're not speaking for the board in its entirety. You're not speaking for LPEA in its entirety. This is you as one director sharing your thoughts. I'm going to pause there and make sure that Amanda and Graham, I said that correctly. And then I'll see if there's any follow-up from directors.
Sounds right to me.
Okay, great. I know that was one of y'all's big questions. Any clarification or follow-up or feedback on that? Awesome. Okay. And then, so just as a reminder, so what we're going to do today is kind of launch this process into the universe, which is really exciting, and get you all in a place where you can start connecting with community groups you're interested in chatting with and getting signed up and hopefully getting some things scheduled. Yeah, Kohler.
Sorry, a little slow, raise my hand. Looking over this communication versus engagement, how is that going to get measured, and how does that get reported back to,
yeah,
you know, are we actually accomplishing what we're wanting to do? And can we be more effective?
Awesome. Thanks, Kohler. Were you a plant in this presentation? I can see to the next piece of this. So just a quick process review on that front. And again, this is, you know, we're launching this and we will revisit, and if I think ongoing, we'll revisit offline, and then perhaps as a full board, we'll revisit in a few months and just make any course corrections. But if we are, I think we've got some mechanisms in place to address Kohler's great question. So really quick, if I can find it. So as a reminder for process, let's see. Heading out into this universe, that is our service, our individual service territories. Maybe you're going out on your own, maybe you're going out with a fellow member. And so first and foremost, we're going to reference that log, and I'll pull that up on the screen here in a second, just to see what types of groups haven't been targeted. Are there certain geographies in your district that have not yet had a presence from directorship? Then once you figured out who you want to chat with, please do just reach out to Jess Dunbar. She's not censoring us, but she is just making sure that we're a little bit coordinated with staff and some of their engagements with clients and stakeholders. Once Jess gives you the, yep, please go present to that group, then you're free and in the clear to work with those folks to get things scheduled and set up logistics however you want. We'll go over the presentation outline today. We are hoping to have the slide deck online and ready for you also, but the comms team's been down for very happy reasons, down their graphic designer for a little bit, who's out on maternity leave. And so we're still waiting on a couple of pieces to come back. So we have a really polished, graphically rich presentation for you. But we'll go over the outline today so you at least have those pieces. And then to Kohler's point, there is a really brief little report form that we fill out after a presentation. You all have access to the responses on the back end of that. It's just a Google form. And more so in that report form, there's some prompts that really ask exactly those questions, Kohler, and kind of nudge you to think about like, hey, what issues were brought forward? What questions need to be brought to the board or to the staff? Did you follow up with those actions? And then moving forward, every board meeting during director reports, there'll be a chance for people to share out their reflections and learning or questions that got brought forward at reports. So, or brought forward from presentation. So that's kind of what we've got set up for now. Does that kind of speak to what you were asking, Kohler? Great. And I think we'll see, right? If you're like, yeah, this was so presentation style and no, like shut everyone down, then we need to change the process. Great.
And Rachel, won't there be a metric for just attendance? Because that's another, you know, just how many people came.
Yeah. So on that front, sorry, I'm like bouncing around on screens for you all. Close your eyes so you don't get car sick. So just to give you the visual reminder of things, and this all gets sent out in an email package to you. Here's that outreach log where you just put your potential group that you're interested in working with. And then and then from there you can just contact Jess, and when she gives you the green light, you can change on the drop-down menu your status of things. Like, great, I'm headed there. And then to Nicole's point, after you give your presentation, there's this hopefully very short eval to fill out, and there's approximate number of attendees, approximate, you don't need to have sign-ins, 5, 10, maybe it's 40, I don't know. And then there's just a chance to kind of, for us to see what is really on people's mind in more of a systematic way. You can just check through which of these are of interest. And then if there's any highlights or issues that you want to bring forward, I get this little thing out of the way. And then questions you didn't know the answer to, not to judge you, but I think we can then start to get a pulse, and Amanda and our team can help maybe build us some talking point guides for things we're not aware of. Yep. And any actions that is informing you as a director coming out of Cooperative 101 and your presentation. So there's that piece. Cool. Questions on that? And then for those of you who aren't maybe familiar with Google Forms, they populate, you can kind of design them to do this, but they populate a spreadsheet. And so you all give access to everyone, and so everyone will be able to just see the collective responses that people are putting forward. And then I think we talked about I would package up a report to bring back to folks that just has overarching themes once or twice a year. All right, cool. So now we're just going to rock and roll into the overview of the presentation. This is, a rough draft, and it's not built from nothing. I appreciated Emily Frogen's comment during public session about, hey, wait, we did all these focus groups. And I guess Kohler's pointing it to it as well. What are you doing with that information, and is it being incorporated? And so where this outline came from is from, I think you all filled out a Google survey that I put forward about what were the questions that you're hearing from members you really want to be able to address that we don't think we've done so yet before. And then members that are out there listening, it's also coming from what we hear a lot in public comment or in our community facing conversations that we just want to tackle. And so the big thrust of this presentation, if you recall, it's to help just develop a more basic and comprehensive understanding of how LPEA works as a cooperative, and what, as a nonprofit, what our values are, to help spread the word and give people a clearer understanding of the power transition and specifically what it means for them, to provide honest answers of some of the underlying questions and themes that often come up to the extent we can. And so all the information here has been vetted with staff to share the data we can and include vaguenesses when we can't share specifics. And then help membership understand where they find this information on their own, how do they plug in. And then I guess these are just some design pieces, but make sure that it's stuff we feel like we're knowledgeable in. We're not presenting on Dan's Loge study. And then just helping our membership see us as people and as their representatives, to some of those comments about, is the membership's voice being heard? How can we help them see that that's what we're here for? So I'm not going to go over this in detail, so we can all get on break. But this is just a general outline. Everyone is going to speak to this in their own way. There'll be an accompanying slide deck, but there are kind of the big headers and some suggestions for how to carry this forward. We start with a welcome and an introduction that's a little more personal. So people, you're up there in your little jacket with your name tag, but people understand you're just a member. We're just members of the community as well. Frame it up so they have a sense of what to expect. This is adult education theory. People like me with ADD, we need to understand what's coming or we'll zone out. Give them, and then this was one Amanda wanted to make sure is just here and give you some cover, like, hey, we're here to provide factual information and updates. And then if I'm giving opinions, they're mine alone and don't necessarily reflect those of the board or of LPEA. And so then it's just a super high level, what we do and who we are. And we included the cooperative principles in here in a way that's, I think, is intentionally highlighting some of the key things that people bring forward. So for instance, in member benefit, talking about capital credits, a hot minute. Under independence, it's alluding to kind of this notion of our power transition. So a few things in there. Then on business modeling, this is really is, I say a nugget because it's a nugget, and it seemed like the thing we get all the time is we know it's really difficult for folks to understand the rate structure and where kind of what it actually costs to make all this happen. And so we just included a really high level breakdown of the different things on the bill and then what that actually pays for. So that will be representative visual here, but it's like our staff, it's our poles, and it's our electricity. And then we speak to the rate increase and make sure we tackle that head on and address why we've done that. And then we speak to where we are headed. So this gets to the power supply question. I'm hoping this will most likely change as when we adopt our new strategic goal, which is a very exciting strategic goal for the public out there, just so you know. And then just against that, if this is where we're heading, kind of go back to those core pieces of our mission and core pieces of the goal. How are we doing on reliability? And I think that's an amazing chance to just hype that, we are always a federally regulated entity. We're on the system. Reliability is amazing, especially compared to some of our peers. And so this is our KRTAs packaged up into a much an allowable format. And then highlighting the amazing things that we have done to increase reliability that again speak to member concerns. Cost of power, this is a chance for us to tout some of our stats again as we're allowed to. And I think also this is a chance for us to really showcase how much the staff have worked hard to keep our internal and operational costs low. And I think address some of the concerns people have around salaries and some of the information that's out there just to help correct that notion and help folks understand that we actually run really lean and really tight on an operational side of things. And then on cost of power, just highlighting that, here's just one example with the tri-state rate increase announced at this last board meeting, that is something we will have to mitigate at some point, but only until April 1st, and then we're out of it. And then also highlighting this really exciting stat about reducing our energy cost by an estimated 10%. I think Sue brought up like carbon goals, making sure people know where we're at with that. And then highlighting, yes, some of that is definitely due to overall grid cleanup, which is so exciting. And then also some of the amazing projects that have gone on and where we anticipate heading. Cool. And so you're probably going to need to pick and choose with this if you've only got a 20-minute presentation. And again, most of these things I think are really high level. But then on the transition to energy independence, again, for most folks, they might not understand kind of this old centralized model that we were in, or there's a lot of questions about why we are leaving it. And so this is just some big talking points to help with that I think charge the situation and just state some of the challenges we were experiencing. And then visually representing where we get to go from here, and how it will allow greater choice and flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. Then a quick note on timeline. And I know this has been an ask for a while, so we'll update kind of the visual we have for this so it's a little more consumer facing on that timeline. And then just highlighting that transition and how it actually, we anticipate impacting rates, reliability, and cleanness of energy. Last but not least, just a plug for people to stay informed and engaged. And so the thought is there'll be some QR codes people can scan with, certainly if you're doing a presentation, but also we'll have I imagine that'll also be printed out in a paper flyer that we can send with folks so that whoever you're presenting to can kind of get signed up for and learn about the different ways that they can be involved in their co-op. And then that's that. Close her up with some Q&A. And again, big thing on the Q&A is if you don't know the answer, that's an okay thing to just say, I'm not sure. I will get to the staff. It's actually our policy, and they will get back to you. Only other thing that the team really wanted to highlight is, you know, when we're giving these co-op 101 presentations, again, you are officially out there as an ambassador of LPEA and your official duties and capacities. And so making sure if you are an incumbent director campaigning, that this is not in any way conflated with campaign activities, that they're very distinct. So, and with that, I will stop. So big picture, super high level. There's hopefully enough meat in there to give you those talking points you're wanting to see, because it does get confusing what we're allowed to share, what we're not allowed to share, but also gives you the leeway to share it in your own way. Yeah, cooler.
Yeah, a little clarity, and maybe I missed this, but can you tell us the timeline we have to expect to get that slide deck? And then with that slide deck, is the intention of the slide deck for us to learn what we're doing, or is that slide deck for us to present to the members? And if it is to present to the members, can we kind of dissect it to just use the part we're going to discuss? I mean, everything you brought up would take days to talk about, not 15 minutes. So can we dissect that part to use it if it's meant for the members?
I think so. Amanda, could we package it up into little, like we could have the full one, and then Kohler, what I'm hearing is maybe there's a power transition one, and maybe there's a just nuts and bolts sort of one, and there I envision like a Google Drive folder, and there'd be those different kind of iterations of the slide deck.
Absolutely. Great idea.
And the timeline again, and when we can expect to see it?
We're going to get back with Rachel. No, you didn't miss it, Kohler. It's expected for next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And again, if you want to start getting scheduled with your folks, we are now free and clear to do so. Any other questions, or are there things missing in this that you are hoping to hear about or see? Yeah, Ted.
Sorry, slow on the draw. Amazing progress. Thanks for getting us here and for sharing this. And I'm just excited to take the reins when the time comes. So appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Ted. All my District 3 directors, I'm going to propose we have a bike presentation coming up here in October. Awesome. Thanks so much. And then, yeah, any feedback you have on the process or changes, I'm currently the point of contact, I think, on that front. And I very much welcome it. Thanks.
Ted, do you want to comment to Rachel? Go ahead.
Yeah, just I'm typing some up right now, but there were a few like kind of suggested edits from the stuff we saw there. So what's your thought process on that process? Meaning, let's try and make sure we do get whatever. Obviously, we can adjust on the fly, but it'd be nice to get it as close to
it's
quote unquote perfect, polished before it gets into kind of PowerPoint stage, and we've done more effort than we have to back up a little bit. So just maybe give us like a timeline or a deadline or something to say, hey, if you see anything in here that you don't think the whole board should present or blah blah blah, get it done by this timeline.
Awesome. I know we've worked really hard for board things this week, but if possible, if we could have that by Monday morning of next week, that would be great. And I will send out the Google Doc in a way where people can make comments and suggestions on that. And I think that way we can see in one place what everyone's comments and suggestions are.
Great. Thank you for that late add-on or that late addition question, because I kind of had the same one, but fantastic presentation. Thank you for taking this idea and running with it and coming before the board with such a well thought out presentation. And to Amanda too. I know this is a collaboration between you guys, and I'm excited to see the deck, a little nervous / excited to do it. So, okay, so it is 10:45. We are going to go on break. When we come back, we'll have one more board action agenda item, the tri-state rate update. And I have heard that our legal counsel can come in at 11:30, so which is about an hour early than we had him scheduled. So take the next 20 minutes as in the agenda. So at 11:05, we'll come back, we'll finish up the board action agenda, and then move into attorney update. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are now on the board action agenda 5, item D, the tri-state Class A rate update, and I will hand that over to Chris.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam President. Members of the board, just wanted to give everyone some update on some recent decisions made by the Tri-State Board, as well as the public announcements that went with those. Tri-State has voted to increase its Class A rates, its wholesale power rates that we currently buy from them by 7.5%, starting on January 1st of 2026. That means that it will impact LPEA for essentially the first quarter of 2026, from January 1st until March 31st. That results in an increased wholesale power cost for our members of about $1.3 million. This will then, I think, lead to the discussion in the next couple of board meetings about how do we want to incorporate those wholesale power cost changes for our members. The board will be able to evaluate several different scenarios as we discuss the 2026 budget. As I said, the impact is about $1.3 million, so the board can decide a variety of mechanisms. We can absorb that and use any reserves that we have or rate stabilization funds that we have to absorb that. We could pass that on to members. We could do some combination of the two. So lots of different choices for the board to evaluate, but I want to make sure the board was aware of that decision that is now public and has been filed with FERC, that Tri-State will be increasing its rates by 7.5% for its wholesale power costs. And as I said, we've done the calculation, and it looks like it will be approximately a $1.3 million change in wholesale power costs for LPEA for the first 3 months of 2026. So that's the update. More to come on that. We're looking at those different scenarios as we prepare the budget for your review, and be very happy to take any questions from the board. I see a question from Ted.
Yeah, just Chris, how I guess solid firm is that? Does it require FERC review? Is it here's the rate subject to refund? Is there any that's sort of the question is like, is it a done deal? I mean, I totally understand and accept that it is a done deal from Tri-State to its members to LPEA, but in the bigger context, is it solid?
I guess my short answer is I think it's a done deal. There certainly are some review steps. It has been filed with FERC, but I think our expectation is that that it will be approved and that will go into effect on January 1st.
Ted, I can probably address that a little bit, and then when Matt Larson gets on, he can address it as well. So my answer is that so the rate is effective as filed, subject to review, right? And as Matt has updated us in the public session, there are settlement negotiations around the litigation of the underlying components of the rate that are ongoing. I'll let Matt handle what element of those settlement talks are public and what are private. So this would be good to sort of re-ask that question to him when he gets here in a few minutes. But short answer, 7.5 will be effective January 1st as applied, but we'll see what is progressing on terms of the underlying rate settlement case that's been going on.
And I may just add one other piece of information. If you might be asking yourself, what would the rate impact be if that were passed on to our residential customers? It comes out to about $9 per month if the board decides to pass that through to our residential customers. So just another data point for you: $1.3 million aggregate impact, about $9 per month on residential members. John, I think you're still muted.
I think Nicole was ahead of me. Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think it may be preliminary, so check me if I'm getting ahead of us, but do we have a sense of how that compares to the anticipated rates after exit?
Yeah, so as we've previously publicly released, our wholesale costs are going to come down by about 10% compared to the 2025 rates. So now as we compare them to the new tri-state rates, that opens up about an 18% gap, roughly between 18 and 20% difference in wholesale power costs. So yeah, pretty significant price difference for our members post-exit, approximately just shy of 20% price difference on wholesale power costs. And I do want to emphasize this is for wholesale power costs. That of course doesn't include us paying our line crews and the impact of tariffs on steel costs for transformers, right? There's all the other things that go into our final cost of service. But on the wholesale side, this I think is pretty big change from where we were in 2025.
So I think maybe it's sort of interesting since eventually as we finalize our transition contracts, we'll be able to sort of ultimately do an apples to apples comparison. But I'd be interested, Chris, in your commentary on the assertion, certainly earlier in the member commentary, and as is generally thought of by many members, that Tri-State is a cost-effective source of power in the world. And how is it that we're able to acquire a lower cost of power almost immediately being in the public marketplace while Tri-State's raising their rates?
Yeah, that would definitely require a fairly long analysis. What I can share with the board is that as I said, we're looking at basically a difference of about 18+% between what we'll be paying in wholesale on April 1st and what Tri-State members will be paying for wholesale prices. I think there are a myriad of factors that go into that. First of all, I think we've done a really comprehensive job of looking for the best deal for our members. Very proud of the team and the contracts that we've been able to secure with a variety of resources, right? So we've got, as we've discussed before, we've got Mercuria, we have some long-term PPAs, including two PPAs with Tri-State for power generation from their system. And those are resulting in, on aggregate, a lower cost of power for our members. Why is Tri-State needing to increase their rates? I don't want to provide much editorial comment there other than to say what we've been seeing is they've, I think, deferred these rate increases for several years by the decision of the board. And they have used deferred revenue, which has basically been CTP payments from the several co-ops who have left Tri-State, and use that to delay the changes to their wholesale rates. Now in 2026, they are doing that, but only in part. So they are using some deferred and some non-deferred to have the rest of it covered by an increase in wholesale rates. And we're now seeing that result with the 7.5% announcement. So lots of underlying factors in their balance sheet and their financial structure, their debt structure, lots of things that I will let Tri-State, speak for themselves on that. But just wanted to make sure the board was aware of the public announcement of the wholesale price increase that we saw last week.
And then the last question, has there been any publicly shareable information regarding Tri-State's forecasted rates and beyond the 7% hike?
We do have access as a current member. We do get to see the long-term financial forecasts, but that is not public information at this point. So all that's been publicly released is the 7.5% increase for 2026.
Terrific. Thank you.
Nicole?
Yeah, so I know for a lot of our members, the cost of power is a huge part of how they do business, especially as Brad Blake has advocated for our key accounts, and it's budget season for them. So I'm curious what the process is and our timeline for coming up with a decision on how we intend to deal with this tri-state rate increase.
Yeah, I think the staff preference would be that would be a decision embedded in our October budget discussion. So we're going to be coming to you with, here's our revenue requirement, here's our long-term financial forecast, and we would need to essentially make that decision as we finalize the budget. So that would be October or November.
Thank you.
Ted.
Yeah, Chris, so you, as you were answering John Witchell's question about sort of where, how LPEA sees its outlook and what's in place, and you mentioned the 2 PPAs that we have with Tri-State. So I think it would be important to clarify, and please you clarify to me that these are fixed and these aren't subject to that increase, right? We have a PPA, we have an agreement for the 2 different sources that we're getting from Tri-State, and those are quote unquote fixed contracts, so they're not subject to this increase.
Yeah, Ted, that is exactly right. So we have signed contracts that secure supply from 2 different PPAs from Tri-State. Both of those run from April 1st of 2026 until 2033. And you are exactly right. Those are fixed price. We've negotiated that price for output from the Dolores Canyon Solar Facility, as well as a firming contract that would come from the system overall. And those 2 together are both fixed price PPAs. Yep. Thanks for the question. John.
So just to double down on that, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding you here. So you're saying that Tri-State raised the rate on their members, but then when faced with competitive pressure in the marketplace, offered a lower rate to us?
Well, I'm not. Yeah,
we can't go into any of the specifics of the different rates. I think just to sort of on a the numbers that Chris is referring to are the blended cost of power, which includes the Mercuria, the 2 Tri-States, et cetera. So when we put everything together, we need to be very mindful of the non-disclosure agreements that we have in this competitive market about not identifying sort of specific price differentials between any of these specific contracts.
Really appreciate that reminder. Yeah, so John, I can't answer the question directly for that very reason, but what I was referring to was our total blended cost of power, and as Graham correctly ascribed that to the PPAs that we just discussed, as well as our Mercuria contract and Viacedo, and Sunnyside, right? All of our different sources combined, we are coming in on April 1st of 2026, 10%, more than 10% below our 2025 wholesale prices. And then when you factor in the announcement from Tri-State of an increase of 7.5%, now that gap is even larger, on above 18%.
Pretty interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that update? All right, back to you, Madam President.
Okay, so in aligning with the playbook of the day, I think we're going to use these next 11 minutes before we can get our council on to jump to the end of today's agenda. And Graham, can you lead us with your staff report, your attorney report? This is anyone who's trying to follow along, I apologize. This is item 9, 9A. on our agenda.
So yes, I just refer the directors to my written attorney report and take whatever questions you might have.
And directors, please take an extra minute if you need to kind of realign yourself with where we're at in this meeting.
And just since she wasn't here and able to participate, I think we all noticed that Kirsten did have a question about the participation in the Fitch credit rating meetings, which is going well. I didn't participate in the entirety. I just sort of addressed legal matters, but I believe that if she'd have been here, she'd have probably asked me that question. And so I'll go ahead and answer that in my opinion, it went well. And that process is proceeding very well.
Graham, my understanding is we were supposed to have that back kind of by now. When does Fitch say they'll get back to us with our rating?
Patrick?
That's generally at our discretion. We've been going through their modeling and found some errors and just going through correcting process. So we paused it for a few weeks just to make sure we had everything appropriately accounted for and that their models were in line.
As always, Patrick, I'm so glad you're on our team. I appreciate your thoroughness and not letting waste, the whole haste makes waste. This is incredibly
Yes, and Fitch, to their credit, was very much hey, this is at your pace. So for me, it's like, well, I'm not going to let you guide my pace then. So I appreciate that, Nicole.
Okay, any other questions for Graham? All right, so now looking at our agenda, I'd like to move on to director reports. So the first one on onboard is Roundup. So I don't know if Brad or Dusty wants to present that.
I'm ready to do that.
Okay.
So we didn't have any educational grants this time, but we did look at 3 different groups that were looking to support some kids activities, and then support of kind of a recovering community, people that had substance abuse issues in the past and were kind of establishing a community for recreational activities. So I just refer to the details in the report and see if there's any questions.
Any questions for Dusty? Okay, great. Thank you, Dusty. Thank you, Brad, for representing us and on Roundup.
Yeah.
So CREA, that is Kirsten's territory. I don't know, Chris, if you've had a chance to see a report or highlight anything, and it's totally fine to say I'm not comfortable doing that because.
Yeah, I certainly allow Director Skehan to continue the written reports. I guess I would just say from my side, we did have a managers meeting and discussed several things, including the possibility of highlighting the impact of the RTO discussion on co-ops across the state. So that discussion continues. The other thing I would mention is that we're looking to host our local legislative delegation in Durango on November the 6th. And so coordinating with CREA about bringing in not only our direct representation, but kind of in the neighborhood. So one other senator and 2 other House reps to have a kind of Southwest Colorado legislative gathering and be able to talk in depth about different co-op and electric sector issues on November the 6th. So those are my big updates from CREA.
Okay, well, it sounds like they're in their new building. They're still trying to find their CEO. And then I would just direct any questions from the report to Kirsten. And if it seems like something all board directors should know, just CC us all, please. So the next item is Western United. And I am very proud to say that our very own David is on, sorry, I have too many things open right now. He is the new treasurer. So thank you for taking that leadership on, David Lucian, and for I'm certain that that brings unique benefits back to all LPA members. So I appreciate you taking that on. And so if you want to go ahead and present on Western United, what's going on?
Yeah, my packet is in the board present out, and thank you, Nicole, for recognizing that. I did want to participate on the board. It's a very well-run company. Just a quick highlight, I put the map of where Western United Electric has their presence. It's not just Colorado. It's Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and Idaho. And their fiscal year just ended. They had an audit. There was no finding of significance at all. So a clean audit. They did over $300 million worth of sales this year, and we will be getting our patronage check. So everything's positive and looking good. They're growing, but next year their budget is around 280. They look at some of it shrinking. It's kind of the uncertainty of what's going on with the tariffs is actually trickling down, or not trickling down, affecting growth in all the co-ops if people are going to build, etc., expand. So there is that limit of that. So any questions? All righty. Thank you, Nicole, and appreciate it. Oh, yes, Rachel.
Well, I also want to echo the congratulations. Nice job. It'll be really exciting to see what, yeah, like you said, they do seem like such a well-run cooperative. Not that we're not, but it'll be interesting and exciting to see what best practices or different processes you can bring back to us.
Yes, and I appreciate that. And the main thing is how so we are the co-op and they are a co-op, and we get the material preference. They do sell out to the oil industry, municipals, even some IOUs on the time sometimes, and that is a different level of a margin. So they take care of us, and they do stock what material each co-op needs to have, or they direct ship. So it's very efficient. So again, we work well with them, and they work well with us. So thank you, Rachel. Anything else? All righty, thank y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, Tim, you popped up.
Yeah, this isn't about Western United.
Okay.
Thank you, David, by the way, and congratulations, just as an aside. So Nicole, I just want to move back to CREA for 1 second. I was trying to find something in here, but you're too quick. So, Chris, could you remind me, Kristen's report says that the cost to each member for the new headquarters was $36,000. And could you remind me if that's the same amount we had talked about before? Has it gone up or down? And especially considering the other building is being sold, so that puts some money back into their kitty, I think. And remind me also, do we pay that in a lump sum or over time? And I assume this is additional, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Tim. So the situation is that you're exactly right. They sold the old building and they netted out the cost to the membership. For the new building, it results in about a $35,000 allocation to each member co-op. We will be paying that on an installment basis. So it's about $3,500 per year for us to pay off that portion of the loan that they are using to cover the difference between the building values. The building they sold was worth approximately 1.5 million. The building they bought was worth approximately 2 million. And so that's where that figure comes from.
Perfect. Hey, thank you very much, Chris.
Perfect timing. We have completed now our report section of the agenda, and now we are going to move to item number 6, the attorney update of FERC and related actions. Matt, we really appreciate you being able to come in an hour early, and look forward to hearing what you have to say. What's going on?
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Nice to see you all. Just a few public updates, and we can maybe dive into them briefly in executive session, although I don't expect the executive session piece of this to be extensive. Starting, we'll kind of go FERC, 10th Circuit. and then we'll go to Colorado PUC briefly on the ERP side. So at FERC, rate case remains in settlement negotiations, and I can give an update on that in the executive session. In the 10th Circuit, CTP in compliance cases that are ongoing, that is fully briefed, and oral arguments going to be in Denver for those cases, probably in the first quarter of 2026 is what it's looking like based on the court's current scheduling. And then at Colorado PUC, the tri-state, ERP has reached its end. There was a RRR, like a administrative appeal, filed by NGOs with respect to the tri-state gas asset out in Moffat County. But it looks to be, based on our review to this point, procedural in nature, so it's not really disputing whether to build that unit at this time. So those are really the three kind of key updates going across the board from a public perspective. Happy to take any questions on the public side, or we can transition into executive session. I can give a little further update on the FERC side.
Do you see Joe's hand, Matt?
I do. Oh, sorry. I didn't know who should call on him. I can do it, Joe.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and I've asked this before, just want clarification. Do any of these court cases have might they have any effect one way or another on, our termination with Tri-State?
Not on the timing. It could have in theory, it could have an effect on the amount to be paid, although that would require a court reversing FERC's prior decisions. So that would be the primary way it could affect it.
And that's unlikely, can you say?
It's always hard to say that, but I think that Tri-State has a challenging case in front of them when they're going against FERC on one of FERC's own orders.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, I can give a quick update in executive session and take any other questions there. Yeah, Tim.
This was in the Tri-State report that came from Kirsten. We didn't really talk about that, Nicole, but perhaps, Matt, you could answer this, maybe not. If we need to go to executive session, that's fine. But the Kalawao coal mine is being shut down, and I believe Tri-State has to make a payment on that. And I'm curious if there's any information around how that would be handled in terms of a true-up. As far as FERC is concerned, has Tri-State made a recommendation and about how to handle that? And then how has FERC, or how do you expect FERC would respond to that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the specific payment that's being contemplated or what the timing of that payment is. Do you have any information on that?
I can probably discuss some of that in executive session, Tim. Yep.
So it's not appropriate for public session.
It's not any information that I have comes from Tri-State and is confidential to Tri-State. So
okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Well, yeah, I can provide another little update in executive session, but that's all I got for the public portion of this.
Thank you, Matt. I will now accept a motion to adjourn the public section part of this meeting and move to go into executive session.
For the matters of attorney update on FERC and related actions, confidential update on power supply progress, confidential discussion of CFC loan authorizations, confidential review of Tri-State withdraw agreement documents, and if we need any additional questions related to the Class A rate update that needed to be discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, let's go to the other side.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're waiting on David, Lucian, and Dusty. Oh wait, no, there you are. So just Dusty, I think. Just went through every district. Okay, let's just go ahead and get started. If that's okay. We are coming out of executive session. Do I need to say what we discussed, or is that already recorded?
The topics of the executive session were recorded when we went in.
Okay, so we are coming out of executive session. It's 2:13 p.m. on Wednesday, the 17th. And we have some board action resulting from that executive session. We are on agenda number 8, item A1, approval of CFC loan authorization. Open the floor for a motion. Go ahead, Tim. Oh, wait, don't need a motion because it was recommended by FAC? No.
I would leave it to Graham, but the motion would be to approve 2 specific resolutions, unless you want them stated as a motion separately. But it's 2025-14, I think, and 15, or 15 and 16. And would somebody clarify?
I can state it for
14
you.
and 15.
Yes, the motions to approve resolution 2025-14 CO032-A certificate of resolutions and incumbency, and resolution 2025-15 CO032-P certificate of resolutions and incumbency. Those relate to NR CFC loan authorization signatory authority to the CEO.
Thank you. I couldn't have stated any better than that. That's for sure. So, so that's the motion on the floor.
Happy to second that, Ted.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will, oh, go ahead, Kohler.
Will you just clarify that again? I got kind of messed up on that. Could we rehear the motion, please?
Just 1 second, let me. So it would be to approve resolution 2025-14, which is CO032-A certificate of resolutions and incumbency, and resolution 2025-15 CO032-P certificate of resolutions and incumbency, and these are related to signatory authority for CFC loan authorization to the CEO.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Seeing no other questions, I will say all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is possible approval of tri-state withdrawal agreement, and I will pass that to Graham.
So it was reviewed and determined by the directors that the authority granted to the CEO to act on FERC-related matters and possible filings based on advice from LPEA's retained counsel applies to the withdrawal agreement and related documents, as they are FERC-related matters necessary under Tri-State Rate 281 with contract termination payment tariff. The board also reviewed this determination in the context of Article 9 of the bylaws and concluded that this execution of this document or the delegation of that authority does not violate Article 9 of the bylaws. And the minutes shall reflect that that this was reviewed And that was the understanding of the board.
Okay, thank you, Graham. So we addressed a lot of the reports earlier in the meeting. Prior to the attorney update of FERC and related actions, the only outstanding report left was Tri-State, which is Kirsten's report. If anyone had any questions about the report, I could either field those to Chris to try to answer, or I can note them and make sure that Kirsten circles back. Does anyone have any questions about her report? Okay, so we are at the end of the meeting now. Any further comments, or can I accept a motion to adjourn? Okay.
So moved.
All right, so we will see everyone.
Well, let's get a vote. Do we have a
okay.
motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Yep.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we'll see you guys in person at the October board meeting.
Thank you,
Thank
Nicole.
Great job, Nicole.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.